coming to you from the home of the mini trees. Inspirational, motivational, so come along with us.
Hey guys, welcome to Pixel Talk. In this episode, we meet Dr. Ben Carson, a candidate for the Republican nomination for the White House. Learn how to make and drink a smoothie by Vince Bugney. Get a first-hand account of this week's sports, including the Stanford game by Daniel Foster, and draw some inspiration from Shannon Madden's interview with Madeline Langdon. Hello, my name is Tej Singh, and I'm broadcasting from New Jersey on behalf of Stanford OHS students across the globe. So, hello world. Today we have with us Dr. Ben Carson, one of the front-runners in the 2016 Republican race for the President of the United States. All of our guests on Pixel Talk in the past have been very busy people, but this one tops them all. I'm not sure how many hours of sleep Dr. Carson is getting these days, but one thing is for sure, that personally, it seems surreal and exciting to be sitting face-to-face with someone who could become the leader of the free world. So, Dr. Carson, you have mesmerized a very large section of the GOP base for a number of months now. In your opinion, what has clicked for you, and is there a secret sauce that a high schooler can use in their student council election campaign?
Well, I think the main thing is being able to articulate in a clear manner what you believe and who you are, and being willing to stand up for your beliefs and to be able to defend them. I think also the concept of fairness. Even if people don't agree with you, if they know that you're a reasonable person, that you're fair, that you will hear them out before making a judgment, I think that goes a long way no matter where you are.
Yes, great words of advice, definitely. And it's clear that you've defied heavy odds not once, but numerous times in your long, famed, and successful career. If you were to put a finger on one aspect of your personality that has lifted you to national prominence, what would it be?
I think it's one of the things that I do that may be a little unusual, but it's really quite simple, is I engage in what's called a best-worst analysis. When something comes up, I ask four basic questions. What's the best thing that happens if I do this? What's the worst thing that happens if I do this? And what's the best thing that happens if I don't do this? And what's the worst thing that happens if I don't do this? And if you get in the habit of doing that, every time you face, a difficult decision, your chances of making a good decision increase quite dramatically.
Yes, definitely. And what is one thing that stands out in your mind that you did exceptionally well in your teenage years? And do you think this approach is universally applicable, especially to today's teenagers?
Yes, it's especially applicable in your teenage years, because that's when people make a lot of really bad decisions. And they're not likely to make those bad decisions if they stop and they ask those questions. Before you get in the car with your buddy, who's, high on pot or has been drinking, if you ask those questions, you're not going to do it, believe me. There's a lot of things that you're not going to do. And it also works in the positive direction in terms of things that you should be doing. And it makes you look into the distance. And see, that's a thing that frequently young people don't do. They live for today. But, the reason that we have these complex brains with the ability to project far into the future is so that we can craft our own future by what we do today.
Yes, you'd be one to know about a complex brain. And so, is there anything that you did in your high school years to later realize that in the bigger scheme of things, it wasn't worth spending time on? Would you mind sharing so my generation doesn't repeat the same mistake?
Yeah, well, one of the things that was very helpful to me, the high school that I attended in inner city Detroit was not particularly academically inclined. That's putting it mildly. And very often the teachers spent the whole hour disciplining people and responding to bad behavior. And the subject matter that was to be taught did not get taught. So I made it my business to go back after school and to talk to those teachers and ask them what were they planning on teaching. They were so thrilled to see me. I got a lot of extra tutoring and found out about a lot of extra programs that were going on around the city, which could get myself involved in. The biology teacher, Mr. McCotter, he was a very nice man, but the kind that the students would love to take advantage of. He had the glasses and the high water pants and the squeaky voice and, the typical nerd-like appearance. And they just really tortured that poor man. And he never got the experiments finished. So I went and talked to him, and he said, "How would you like to be the biology lab assistant?" And that was actually my very first job. I got to be the biology lab assistant, set the experiments up. So even though they didn't get finished, I at least knew what they were about. I at least got the learning. And I subsequently started doing that in chemistry and physics also. So even though I went to a relatively poor high school, I got what I needed in order to attend Yale University.
Yeah, it definitely resonates especially with our audiences, a lot of high schoolers. And so if you suddenly landed a non-political magic wand in your gifted hands, what is one thing that you would change about our country's education system, high school education in particular?
Well, I would probably have a different funding mechanism for public schools. Right now, public schools are funded based on, millage taxes. And if you happen to live in an affluent area, you're likely to go to a school that is well equipped. And if you live in a poor area, you're likely to go to a bad school. And as a result of that, you see high dropout rates in the bad schools. And we need to find a way to provide those individuals who are starting off behind the eight ball with the only true mechanism of success in this country, and that's a good education. It doesn't matter what your ethnic background or economic background is. If you get a good education, you can write your own ticket. And what our country must come to recognize is that we only have 330 million people. We have to compete with China and India, who have over 1 billion people, which means we need to develop all of our people. We can't have 20% of our people who enter high school not graduating. We can't have these high incarceration rates. We really need to start thinking more globally about how do we strengthen the fabric of this nation so that we can compete well into the future and maintain a pinnacle position.
Yes, definitely. Great words of wisdom. And especially in today's generation, politicians have a bad rap, but you're doing exceptionally well. Do you think they could take advice, or even high schools could have advice to giving back to the community and maybe connecting with more people?
Well, first of all, I'm not a politician, and I will never be a politician because politicians do what is politically expedient. They've always got their finger up in the air seeing which way the wind is blowing, and they always have a nice slick response for everything depending on which direction it's blowing. That's the kind of thing that has gotten us into the dire straits that we're in now. And what we really need to be thinking about, is there such a thing as right and wrong? Are there such things as principles and values that you apply to your life and that dictate the way that you interact with other people and with society at large? And those are the things that must once again be grasped. And if we're willing to give away all of our values and principles just so that people can say, oh, what a good guy, and pat you on the back. That does not lead to long-term success and long-term prosperity. It leads to special things for special people and special groups. That's exactly what we need to get away from.
Definitely. Could this be applied to high school students? And if you had one message in relation to this question for a high school student, what would it be?
My message for high school students is stop and evaluate what your talents are. Everybody has special gifts and talents. Don't neglect them. Figure out what they are and develop them. And choose a career that allows you to take advantage of your special gifts and talents. Learn how to be honest. If you put skeletons in the closet, they will come back to haunt you. Learn to derive information from other people's mistakes and other people's triumphs. That's known as wisdom. Be nice to people. And eventually, after they get over their suspicion of why you're being nice, they'll be nice to you. And it's a lot easier to be nice than it is to be nasty. Make sure that you become very knowledgeable. Our Constitution is based upon a well-informed and educated populace. Read books. Don't do everything on the computer and on a TV screen, because reading has a very beneficial effect. You're looking at words all the time, so you learn how to spell. You're putting those words together, so you learn grammar and syntax. And you have to take those sentences and make them into real structures, so you learn how to use your imagination. Very important. And the next to the last thing, in-depth learning, as opposed to superficial learning. Those are people who cram before a test, sometimes do okay, and 3 weeks later know nothing. We can't really afford that anymore in the information age. And don't neglect, lastly, your faith and the things that you believe in that truly guide you and guide your soul and guide your interactions with other people.
Yes, definitely. And do you have 5 or so minutes? Because I have one particular question I'd ask about.
Okay.
And so, especially Stanford.
Go ahead.
So Stanford OHS is really a pioneer in this internet type of learning environment. So what do you think is the future of education? Is it online, or do you see it evolving?
Yes. There's some very sophisticated computer programs now. You may be aware of some of them that can look at, for instance, the way a student might solve 5 algebra problems. Based on how they solve them or don't solve them, it's able to tell what they don't know, what they're missing, and it can go back and tutor them in that area, which is the same thing a good algebra teacher can do, but the teacher can only do it for one student at a time. The computer program can do it for a whole classroom, a whole city, a whole state, and being able to use those kinds of technologies will make a huge difference for us going into the future if we, grasp the urgency of doing it. Right now in this country, we've fallen behind a fair amount, particularly in the STEM areas. And this is an area where we can really get caught up because people can work at their own pace, and it can be done in a very interesting way. We can also begin developing and using virtual classrooms. In a virtual classroom, we can take the very best teachers and put them in front of 1 million students instead of 30 students. It can have a profound effect. Also, virtual classrooms, you'll be able to put your goggles on and your helmet, and all of a sudden you can take a trek through an Amazonian jungle, and that may make a much bigger impression on you than reading about it in a book. So those are the kinds of things that I think will make a huge difference. We have the technology to develop those things now, And I think we ought to make that fairly urgent.
Yeah, it resonates, especially since our last interview was with Jeff Dean. He's one of Google's senior research fellows. And so a thing Google released last week is TensorFlow. It's an artificial intelligence type of computer. So it helps and it can do what you're talking about, the math problems. And it's in the news how Google's new virtual reality goggles, you're talking about how they can put them on their face and they can really go around. And it's only it can work with just an iPhone, an Android, and just a piece of cardboard that they mold. So it's really accessible. So, and it's a tradition, going on to our next lighthearted segment. It's a tradition of Pixel Talk to end these interviews with a lighthearted segment called This or That. This includes a series of fun questions that provide its guests two options to choose from. So would you be willing to participate in it?
Tentatively, I'll say yes. Let me hear the question.
Okay. So, gift cards or cash?
Cash.
Rock or rap?
Rock or what?
Rap.
Oh, I'll go with rock.
Early bird or night owl?
Definitely an early bird.
100 meters or marathon?
I'm going to go with the marathon.
Poets or quants?
I like poets.
And born in the 1950s or the 1990s?
Born in the 1950s or what?
1990s.
Oh, I'll go with the 50s any day.
And I saved the best for last. Donald Trump or Hillary Clinton?
What or Hillary Clinton?
What
was the other?
Donald Trump.
Oh,
Hillary Clinton.
Well, I would have to go with Trump over Clinton. I'm sorry.
And so this brings us to the end of this Pixel Talk. And so all of our guests are successful, and thus most of them are extremely busy people. So we thank you once again for coming onto our show and inspiring not only the Stanford OHS community, but youth around the country and maybe even across the globe. So we wish your campaign the very best, Dr. Carson.
Thank you very much. My pleasure, and best wishes to the next generation, because that's what it's all about.
Hey there, my name is Vince Bugney, and today I'm going to teach you how to make a smoothie. Step 1, get a blender. Step 2, get your ingredients. So what you're going to need is some 2% milk, a little bit of lemonade, some frozen strawberries, some frozen blueberries, 1 banana, and a little bit of vanilla whey powder just to keep it interesting. Step 3, let's make a smoothie. I like to start with the banana base because it makes it easier on the blender when it starts. You're going to want to peel your banana, break it into a few sections, and just toss it in. I don't have very many blueberries left, so I'm just going to add all of these. Now we're going to add the strawberries. You want to add maybe a cup. A cup seems reasonable. Now we're going to add a little bit of the whey powder. I hope that's how you say it. I'm going to go for like half a scoop just because you don't want too much vanilla. I don't use this for nutritional value, I just use it because it tastes good. Dump that in there. Finally, for the liquids, a little splash of lemonade and then some milk. And now you blend it up. Wow, what a great looking smoothie. Now, get a glass for you and a friend, or maybe just yourself, and enjoy.
Hey everyone, I'm Daniel, here with your Pixel Talk Sports Update. I spent the weekend in Palo Alto taking in the 118th big game between Stanford and Cal. It was a day full of festivities and rivalry antics. The stakes were high as Cal was the only team standing between our very own Stanford Cardinal and clinching the Pac-12 North. Stanford running back Christian McCaffrey led the team to an early lead and never looked back, setting this new school record for all-purpose yards in a single game. McCaffrey put up 389 all-purpose yards and 2 scores. Stanford toppled the Bears 35-22 and clinched the Pac-12 North. The Axe stays at the farm for the 6th straight year. With their loss to Oregon last week, Stanford was likely booted out of the FBS playoff race, but the Pac-12 championship is 2 weeks away and the Rose Bowl title is still on the line. In other college football news, Michigan State snapped the 23-game win streak of defending champ Ohio State Buckeyes. The Iowa Hawkeyes and Clemson Tigers are officially the only 2 undefeated teams remaining. In the NFL, the Carolina Panthers and New England Patriots extend their undefeated seasons to 10-0. In tennis news, Novak Djokovic topped Roger Federer in the final of the ATP World Tour Finals. And last but certainly not least, the Golden State Warriors are still undefeated in the NBA as of the start of this week. Their win over the Denver Nuggets tied the NBA record for undefeated start, pushing them to 15-0. That's all for this week.
Hi, I'm Shannon Madden, and this week we're speaking with Maddie Langdon, a member of our OHS community and Wonderland Book Savers. Hi, Maddie. So can you first tell us a little bit about Wonderland Book Savers?
Okay, so Wonderland Book Savers is a community service book club that began in 2012, and we started as a summer book club. And when our library was de-accessing books, we found out that the books that they were de-accessing were going to be sent to a shredding company to be made into newspaper. We asked the library if we could take the books ourselves because we knew of a school in Bridgeport that was lacking books, and we donated the books to Bridgeport. Our first initial donation was 800 books, but since then, Wonderland Book Savers have donated over 48,000 books globally.
Wow, that's pretty impressive. So you helped start the charity, I'm assuming, back in 2000?
Yeah, so Wonderland Book Savers now has 8 members, but there are 4 founding members, and those members are Brooks Berry, Emma Langdon, Claire Langdon, and myself, Madeline Langdon.
Great. So how much time would you say that you devote to this charity?
Weekly, we probably devote 3+ hours, and it just mostly consists of boxing books, reading for our book club, speaking with people who work in charities such as Haitian Education Initiatives or U.S. Africa Children's Fellowship, and then sometimes donating books or going to visit kids who donate to.
Okay, great. So I was reading a bit about this over the website, and it seems to be in coordination with a Destination Imagination project. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So for Wonderland Book Savers, we are currently competing in 2 Destination Imagination projects this year, 2 teams divided by age. And so one team is working on the Haitian Creole donation of books because one of our community partners and sponsors, ZapRX, recently won an award and they gave us all the money they won. And so we're putting $1,000 towards buying Haitian Creole books for the children in Haiti because Creole has only been a written language since the 1970s, and so finding Creole books is nearly impossible. And the other team, my team, we're working on getting 2,000 signatures for our first book, which is a company we met at Destination Imagination. And if we get 2,000 people to sign up on our first book form, we will receive 40,000 free new books. And we will use those books to be sent to children in Africa, Haiti, Indian reservations in the Dakotas, and then children in Bridgeport.
Wow, that's fantastic. So as a last question, how has working with this charity impacted of how you think of reading and how it empowers people around the world?
Well, reading before this charity was really something, it was really just words on a page. But recently we did a project with children in our area and children in Bridgeport where we met the librarian at the school in Bridgeport at the Barnum School, and she said that her children really love Dr. Seuss books, and Dr. Seuss books are pretty popular, and so they don't get donated much. And so we told her that we would get her some Dr. Seuss books because it's really important for the children to have a love of reading when they begin school, because reading is ultimately one of the greatest things that can help a children's educational career.
Wow, that's great. This charity sounds fantastic, and I'm so happy we were able to speak about it today. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for watching. Until then,